All right. First of all, you got all the fun stuff, Mike. Okay. Joel Hoepfner has been a behavioral health professional for over 16 years. He's a certified prevention consultant, the supervisory role at Community Mental Health Authority of Clinton, Eaton, Ingham, a contracted training consultant from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, and past chair of the state of the Michigan Training Advisory Council, chair of the state of Michigan Epidemiological Outcomes Work Group executive, board member of the Michigan Association for Suicide Prevention, the Michigan Certification Board for Addiction Professionals, and a member of the Tri-County Crisis Intervention Team. Joel has a long history of providing leadership, direction, and individualized technical assistance with the state, community, and agency-wide trainings, workshops, and webinars on the multitude of topics for diverse audiences. If you've never heard Joel, you're in for a treat. I'll turn it over to you now, Joel.
Thanks, Barry. Appreciate it. It's so nice to be here. It's really cool to see the faces I haven't seen in a little bit and just get to interact with you all. Coalition has been around for some time. I've appreciated everything that's been done with this group and with this offering. For me, coalitions are the vehicle for many things in the state of Michigan and across the US, especially prevention funding, planning, programming, and just moving the needle forward in communities around substance use disorder issues. So I really appreciate it. Again, Joel Hoepfner, Prevention Outreach Coordinator for Community Mental Health Authority of Clinton, Eaton, Ingham. It is very nice to see some friendly faces. This is a dialogue. I do want to encourage you to provide some comments, some things in the chat, and just share as you would like. I would love dialogue with you all. I learned a ton from all the coalitions and coordinators and staff across the state of Michigan. And that's why I do this. It's been an amazing journey, just learning from the partnerships and the connections that I've had for a long time, which I really appreciate. So with that, I think for me, this training, and just to share with you all, this training hour, or just under an hour, is really one component, one piece of a larger training that I worked on for some time and created. Its Prevention Prepared Communities 101. I provided that. Some of you have been there, and I appreciate your participation there. This is one section, small section of actually the Prevention Prepared Communities 201 that I put together and have proposed to the state to provide to behavioral health providers and networks and staff across the state soon. COVID took that out. I was hoping to do it last year, but we've all been kind of in this odd environment. But I'd really like to get something out and shared, and you're getting a glimpse of it. So I'm excited to share. I love the feedback, so feel free. And I really appreciate the work that you all do in your communities. So with that, I think I can start with saying, I believe coalitions impact communities 100%. If it's whatever topic it may be, it could be the Heart Association, it could be around infant mortality, it could be around health and wellness, it could be around suicide prevention, substance use disorder prevention, alcohol use specifically, and so on. Coalitions do so much good in communities. And for me, my entire work and my entire career has been around making them the most effective boards, task forces, associations, committees, advisory councils that they can be. And there's so many iterations. I won't go into that, but I just want you to know that that has been my tenure, that has been my experience. And I really appreciate the work I get to do every day, every week, with all the groups and community groups and associations that I'm connected to. I really hope we can agree that effective coalitions are true catalysts for change in those communities that they serve. So effective coalitions, there is a myriad of ways and levels to be effective. There's amazing coalitions out in the communities and across the state of Michigan, across the US. And what I've been trying to do is piece apart and really understand the characteristics of highly effective coalitions, and then share that information, provide practical application tools, and get people that have usually had very limited training around facilitating a group, those tools to do this work to the most effective, in the most effective way possible. So now I'd ask you, what makes these highly effective coalitions so effective? Why are they catalysts for change? And I would argue that 2 or 3 of the most largest components of that, some of the biggest characteristics around how they communicate with their community, their partnerships, their sustainability of effort. If they don't communicate what they do, the resources that they have to offer, the data around the need, all of these things, no one knows of the great work and the great need in communities. If they don't have the partnerships to really expand the effort, they are not going to be as effective as those that do. And then, do they sustain things over time? I've been through forming, storming, and norming of coalitions my entire career, and it's been a wild ride. But that is to say, it does impact how much communities are hurt by coalitions that ebb and flow, that maybe go under, are taken out, lose funding, lose staffing capacity, whatever it may be. So that's the long intro. I'm going to share my screen and really dive into this. But I really like the participants and the folks that are here today. I want to hear your feedback and get your thoughts on a lot of this stuff. Can everybody see that? All right, we are going to move forward into this session. What I also want to do is provide a framework, or a really a foundation, if you will, how we are all connected. And if you're newer to the field of prevention, or if you've been around some time, this will make sense as we go, and as you kind of see how I'm framing this. We are all aligned in the fact that we are trying and attempting to build systems of prevention in communities. These systems, coalitions, task forces, groups, networks, they align stakeholders, prevention efforts. ROSC is recovery-oriented systems of care. We obviously interact with treatment, recovery in different ways, and integrated care opportunities, depending on how highly effective or high our capacity and resources are. We identify opportunities to expand and braid funding and resources. Many of you receive grants, access grants, write grants, whatever it may be, and partner in those ways, which is excellent. We want to reduce duplication of strategies and services. We don't need 4 providers providing the same service. We want one that does it very well and can be supported and promoted in different avenues. We advocate. Many of you are great proponents of underage drinking and prevention around that and beyond. So advocacy is a big deal. Stigma reduction involving behavioral health. And my language is behavioral health is all inclusive of substance use disorder, mental illness, as well as population suffering from intellectually developmental disabilities. So when I speak to behavioral health, I'm all encompassing with that language. The federal direction, if you're not aware, is prevention prepared communities. They are trying to do exactly this, is they are trying to create communities or systems where individuals, families, schools, faith-based organizations, and workplaces take action to promote emotional health and reduce the likelihood of mental illness, substance use, and suicide. So it's not just substance use disorders, it's not just suicide. We're talking all of these things because many of them have shared risk factors. And that is something we all are being more aware of. Just want to check the chat and get that lined up here. So questions about how this is, how we all are aligned in these efforts. And whatever you do locally, whatever you do for your coalition, we are aligned in building systems of prevention and supporting prevention prepared communities. So when you think about it, you have to step back a little bit and think about what are you connected to on a larger scale as a county, as a community, as a system of care. For me, the biggest thing, and one of the biggest things, and I love the podcast. I was pulled away this morning, but the podcast conversation kind of adds to this flavor. The best coalitions I've worked with and I am aware of are very, very good at communication. They communicate with their community, with their partners, with their stakeholders on a variety of different levels. And podcasts is another way and another vehicle to do that. They communicate their brand. We're going to talk about branding. They talk about and they communicate their identity, their service to the community in so many ways. So communication is imperative. And I want people to think about that and how they do it today and how you do it locally. It's great. Is there other considerations for you going forward? Is there other vehicles or mechanisms that you would like to consider going forward? Or is there partnerships that you can utilize that will assist you in building and enhancing your communication platforms? So in the chat, feel free. Do you have a communication plan? Do you have a formalized few page or one page or a few bullets of a communication plan for the coalition you are connected to, or the several coalitions that you're connected to? Feel free. If you do or do not, in the chat. What I want to share is communications plans are an excellent opportunity for coalitions to really refine their messaging and communicate more effectively with the population they're serving. And for most coalitions, it's general population, but then universal, selective, indicated with the prevention themes. But it has to be more thoughtful and more specific than we communicate, or we have a Facebook, or we have a website, or we have a TikTok or an Instagram or whatever it may be. So I like Alliance of Coalitions. That's a great network, has a communication plan. That's excellent. McCrud, you do well with one. You guys have done an excellent job with your agendas and your action-oriented meetings. I've noticed that. That's been awesome to see. There's so much shared, so much information. But communication plans, back to this, I wanted to give you some detail. Objectives, intended outcomes. That's what it should include. And these are the pieces that people can go through. You can do it as a team, as a staff, as a coalition, and consider these things. And you're on your way. You have a communication plan in place. And then you can see what you're missing or what you want to expand to and go from there. What would you like to accomplish? That's the objective we want to know. So for McCrud, do we need more? Are we looking for expansion of sharing of resources, advocacy? Is it partnerships or membership? For me, I thought of referrals to services. So thinking about a local coalition, you want to increase referral to services, increase awareness of the problem, increase potential partnerships. Those are all objectives that you can connect and align with your audience, your type of message, your delivery methods, your frequency and duration, and responsible parties. Secondly, audiences. So we're talking providers, youth groups, youth serving agencies, youth themselves, parents, at-risk populations, businesses, general public. You want to consider as many as relevant for your group or your association. Types of messages, access to services, resources, data, publications, and prevention tips. People, you guys are amazing experts. We need to get this information out as much as we can around drinking and driving, or taking safe routes home, or whatever it may be, locking up alcohol, or making sure you're providing a safe graduation party, whatever it is. Prevention tips abound. And really, I wanted to ask, what type of messages do you share? What are your major themes that you share in your communication? Is it prevention tips, or is it referral to services? Is it just resources and data? And I'll give you an example of this later on in this presentation, is our Facebook toolkit. It is this communication plan in an easy button. I'm basically giving all of these things for myself and my partnerships on a platter. And I'll speak to that in a little bit. Delivery methods. So what are your venues, mechanisms to get out information? Do you do email blasts? Is it newsletters? Is it PSAs, public service announcements, press releases, billboards? I mean, I keep adding to this because I keep remembering additional ways to get out information that not every coalition either has the ability to use or considers. Facebook is big, TikTok, could be Instagram, it could be all kinds of different social media platforms, depending on the population and target, or media outlets. You know, think about those. Which ones, what are your delivery methods, or what are your go-to? I'd love those in the chat. Types of messaging and delivery methods. Anybody have any to share? I know ours is Facebook, and we're starting to do more press releases, and we're working on some PSAs and access to services. That's our number one really for us as a community mental health authority. We want to make sure our services are known to the public. We have about 3,000 followers and growing on our Facebook. I manage that, and we basically want to increase our penetration rates. The people that are on Medicaid and need services aren't accessing services. We need to get better communication out there, and we do that in a variety of different ways. So Barry speaks to bus ads. That's great, especially in those urban areas, those cities and communities that have solid busing. That's excellent. Any other methods or types of messaging? Feel free to throw them out there. Frequency, duration, pretty self-explanatory, but how often and how long? And then responsible parties. All coalition members can promote the activity, not just staff. It's really about having your community share with you what you're involved in. Facebook, Instagram definitely is a go-to for folks. That's great. I think that's a big deal. We need to move into Instagram or TikTok for our population that we serve. Some of the work we're doing with suicide prevention. Facebook, looking into use TikTok as well next fiscal year. That's great. That is a consideration for us too. It's just those platforms, and see how it goes. It's some of these are full-time jobs that we can't do. We don't have the capacity for, but they may be something we consider and see if it gets us another 2,500, 500 connections. Any questions, any thoughts on communication plans? I think this is just a good checklist for
Just a
any
comment, Joel.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, just a comment. Hey, makes me think of, I agree, communication is very, very key. And that's something the CRUD needs to get better at, different ways to communicate. But one thing I was really impressed with, one of the lawmakers from some years ago was Representative Joan Bauer, who served the Lansing area quite a few years ago now, maybe 10 years ago. But what I really admired about her was, to your point, she was so good at communicating with her constituents. And I think that was really a key to her success. She had a lot of coffee hours and really heard people's concerns. And it's like you felt like you're right there alongside her when she was deliberating or deciding on a policy issue, because she'd explain it in her coffee hours about some things are so close that it was really hard to decide, but you had to go one way or the other. But just to emphasize your point of communication, I think that she really excelled at that as a policymaker, I think. So your point is well taken.
I would agree. And it's you see it. I mean, you can see those examples in your community of who does well. You know, you got the hospitals, they're pretty good at it, but they have a lot of money. But who's creatively doing it or doing it in different ways that aren't costing a ton? Barry, you mentioned 3 areas to use communication plans, community partners and stakeholders. I'm missing a third. Communication plans. They communicate your brand, your identity, service to the community. That's kind of, some objectives was referrals to services, awareness of problem and potential partnerships. If that's what you're referencing, Barry, I'm not sure. But let me know, or I can follow up after. So what we want to talk about next is another really cool idea that people are really starting to understand and take hold of, and many coalitions have done this for a long time very well. Those ones we are aware of and have heard of across the state. But what I want to talk about is brand for a minute and saturation of message. So I really like this statement. I want you just to think about this for a second with all the prevention you've known about, you've been a part of, and you've done yourselves. Brand saturation is a state that is achieved when an agency or company is so effective at generating awareness and conversation around a particular issue or brand that nearly every person in the target area or market knows, follows, or is engaged by the issue or brand. Nike, you know, Kellogg's, you got all these amazing brands if you want to think of for-profit businesses. But what about other ones? What about nonprofits? What about local community groups, local United Way? I mean, you have to understand we're surrounded by brands. And what I'm talking about here is your coalition and your agency or your community group has its own brand to define and to market and to promote. And when you get to a certain place where you know your message is out there, it's generating awareness, it has its own kind of momentum, that's saturation of message. And if it's around issues or the opioid epidemic, if it's about COVID, if it's about vaccines, if it's about underage drinking, if it's whatever it is, we want to think about saturation of message with our population, with the folks we serve. And I really wanted to just throw it out there. Do you know your brand as a coalition, as a community group? What are you known for locally? That is your brand. You can expand on that. And then saturation of message is key. If we're only talking to a few people and we have this amazing information about keeping kids safe and healthy or healthier around underage drinking, around misuse of alcohol or whatever it may be, we need to consider and think about how are we really saturating the message of our coalition. And that goes back to the communication plan. And I think everybody can consider either looking at or reevaluating their communication plan or starting one. And I love the building a brand is like building a house. It is. And for me, I'm assisting with building the CMHA-CEI brand, as well as some of the boards that I sit on, McBAP, MASP, Michigan Association for Suicide Prevention. Tri-County Lifesavers is another suicide prevention group. I also am on the board of Tri-County CIT, Crisis Intervention Team. I'm trying to help establish and build and create and sustain a brand so people know where to go for information around crisis intervention team, suicide prevention initiatives, or whatever it may be. Questions, comments there? Okay, we're on to partnerships. And again, time is limited, so I want to get through as much as I can of this. Partnerships are key, just like communication. They increase collaboration, they improve performance, they enhance planning, they expand teamwork, they build synergy, they achieve success, and they create a win-win opportunity for your partnerships and for your community stakeholders. I want to make sure everybody thinks about this. I believe truly that partnerships are unlimited, endless, infinite, and untapped potential. There's so many different groups that want to work with you right now, but they're not aware of us. They're not aware of our activity. They're not aware of our resources, our services, our potential funding streams that we can connect to, or our capacity and expertise. We want to really, partnerships act as a change agent. So when you enhance or expand partnerships, you're driving systems change. When I connect more to the hospital as a CMHA-CEI, as a behavioral health authority, there's ripple effects to how those staff and how those departments interact with CMHA on referrals, crisis intervention, crisis response, stabilization efforts, whatever it may be. Any enhanced potential funding opportunities, resources, staff, co-sponsorship, co-branding, promotion of effort, and initiatives. Anybody here can share a great co-branding example? I love co-branding. I'm a big proponent of it. So everything we do, everything I connect to, I am thinking about co-branding. So right now, well, I can give my examples, but anyone have an example of co-branding that you do locally? And again, this is, I would love a dialogue, or at least some offering of some local situations, some other individual circumstances. I know you guys do a ton of co-branding, ton of partnering. Any out there you could throw in the chat? I'll give my example because we don't have too much time, but for me, one of the really cool things that we were able to do is connect our mental health first aid training activity that we've been doing for about 9 years now. And we've trained a ton of people, and our QPR, question, persuade, refer, suicide prevention trainings. We've collaborated, co-branded. So we've asked for money and or a kind of a support that will offset our budget so we can provide these low cost or no cost trainings to the community. AFSP, American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, MASP, Michigan Association for Suicide Prevention. They're both co-branded on the QPR and mental health first aid selectively or independently, co-branded with all our promotion of effort. Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I've got I think an example, and I'll share it. You can tell me, but maybe it's not, maybe co-branded is too strong, but I think of periodically McCrud will do like a sign-on letter about an issue, and we'll ask for our partners to, if they're okay with it, we'll sign their name and their coalition to the letter. If we have the capacity to add logos, we'll do that, but sometimes it's a little harder with formatting some of those things, or it's moving too quick. But letting people lend their voice to our letter on an issue. And then another example with Ashley's group, who'll be up next talking. This stuff just goes over my head. Like, I'm not a very good marketer probably, or a person who works on branding, but we're working on an outlet density project with Ashley's group. And I think she was one that suggested it, like we created some kind of form on local coalition members to go in the stores and verify the products being sold and the addresses. And I think Ashley suggested like maybe we should put our logos on it or something like that. It just went completely over my head. Like, yeah, it's probably a good idea. You know, so I'm always reminded by that. Like whenever we do a McCrud piece, maybe we should add our McCrud logo, because that's how basic I am, I guess. But I'm sure there's other great examples out there. So people, again, if people want to raise their hand or unmute, Joel's very, wants you to jump in the conversation. So feel free.
I like it, Mike. Thank you. And I'd put that in a little bit of co-sponsorship category and co-branding, maybe another level. For me, it's just tiers. So it keeps going up with any kind of funding support or fiscal support. It'd be more co-branding. But then if it's more staffing support or name support, it may be co-sponsorship. But you can think of those kind of things intertwined. So the Alliance co-brands a lot of its resource materials with the coalitions in our network. Yeah, I see that a lot in what I receive. I receive your newsletters. Thanks, Marianne, that's great. And there's so much co-branding to be done. I think it's untapped. If money is an issue or financial constraints are an issue, there's partnerships and sponsorships really abound. It's just how you are able to share your message, connect your message with different partners, and then communicate that message. So consider that going forward. If I can be of assistance there, I would be happy to support via email or call or something like that anytime. So again, we're talking about enhancing funding, resource, staffing. It includes business, industry, hospitals. Who's connected to faith-based associations? They're amazing. They're doing this work somewhat on their own sometimes. I know some are doing amazing work with your faith-based associations, statewide associations, other coalitions, task forces, health and human service agencies. Narcan training is another co-brand or co-sponsored initiative in the Holly Area Community Coalition. Narcan training with ACHC, that's excellent. Again, could be statewide associations, local associations, community groups, neighborhood groups. You just can be amazed with how many options there are for you to connect your activities already existing with someone that wants to help and pitch in actual fiscal ways to support your efforts. So where to begin? I wanted to give this a little bit in here just so folks have an idea. It's fairly self-explanatory, but I wanted to just give some detail. Where do you begin? So your new staff, you got partners around the table, you want to expand them. Well, let's think about who are some potential partners and those organizations.
I forgot about
what
that.
resources?
Where are you guys meeting?
Oh, we got a little feedback. Or list potential partners, identify potential resources they might provide, what's in it for them. So you want to ask yourself what's in it for them, why they might partner, and think about that beforehand. Who do we know at this organization? Who will contact them? Identify contact information and know your pitch. So somewhat self-explanatory, but again, some coalitions just have people show up and connect, and that's awesome. But we can do some, I know a lot of coalitions do this very well and could have some things to share. So when we have longer, when I do the full day training, I'm going to have people give examples and maybe share a pitch or how they approach partnerships. But I want to, give that quick overview and jump into some levels of partnership or collaboration just because of our limited time. So again, we all know people will have varying levels of interest or availability to participate in our efforts. Some maybe help tasks specific, others maybe take on leadership roles. Here's some options for you to consider. And we've kind of heard about these likely. Obviously, you have no involvement, then you have networking level. So no involvement, you do your thing, we'll do ours. Maybe it's a competitive coalition or a competing initiative, but there could be alignment. Networking is, they basically share what they're doing. So it's just update meetings. And these meetings are info sharing, and that's it. So there's no real plan. Maybe I put some of the county collaboratives in this arena. Maybe they do some subgroup and subcommittee work and actually flesh out an initiative, but it's more about networking. Then you have cooperation and coordination. And these are the ideal levels that people want to operate in. So they publicize their others' newsletters. They write letters in support of others' grant applications or advocacy opportunities. There's Mike's example. Co-sponsor trainings, which is awesome. That's a big deal. Professional development activities, exchange resources, technology, expertise, space, whatever it may be. I'll support your program and you'll support mine. That's where we want to be. And I think that where a lot of you folks operate. And then coordination is another level where we would plan an event together, implement programs and services together. That's another level. entirely, but it's the ideal level I think that people want to be at. And then finally, collaboration. So this is the top of the mountain. That's very high level. Don't beat yourself up because there's not many groups that are operating collaborative level in all things. Maybe they do some things, or some aspects of their coalition are very collaborative in the fact that they have formal agreements around service delivery, alignment or connection. They have data system, maybe data collection system agreements, fundraising efforts, fiscal or human resource sharing, workforce training systems, whatever it may be. Let's work together on a comprehensive plan to address the issue. That's where we want to achieve. That's kind of the highest level. We've done some of this with our activity on mental health first aid. Like I mentioned, we have it embedded in a variety of different agencies in the Tri-County area here. We have it co-sponsored, co-branded with MASP. We also have it, within the school systems and being embedded in their formal professional development activity. Alcohol vendor training, I've seen some examples of that with different groups. So again, lots of opportunities for collaboration level to be met. It's just really knowing and understanding those different levels. Here's an example that I wanted to share and make sure everyone's aware of. I've mentioned this of the past few years. This is the 3rd edition of the Behavioral Health Prevention and Wellness Facebook Toolkit, but it can be used in other Instagram or other social media platforms. This is true intent of this was to promote communication, increase area partnerships, to develop, to really be a marketing tool and promotional tool for CMHA-CEI. So this is just an example I wanted to share, but this was an outgrowth of everybody needing behavioral health information, resources, education, mental health literacy, resources. I can go on and on, service access information, and they need the same for your agency and your issue. So this toolkit was specifically for our community partners. It supports the dissemination or sharing of information, resources, training opportunities involving behavioral health, prevention and wellness initiatives, and information to individuals and families we serve. So the internal purpose was to increase awareness of behavioral health issues, to promote local resources and training opportunities, and reduce stigma around behavioral health issues. We tried to create the easy button for our partners to share information about suicide prevention, about mental health promotion, about wellness, about substance use disorder prevention, about motivation and well-being. I mean, it was just basically an outgrowth of all kinds of different things. And it's been shared in a variety of different networks across the state of Michigan. We're really happy about that. We're having other CMHs utilize this. But there's the link. You can check it out. Let me know your feedback. It's a social marketing toolkit, social media marketing toolkit for our partners. It's all there. They can promote our mental health first aid training. They can promote access to our services. They can promote suicide prevention resources that aren't ours. We promote our partners in it as well. I like Ruth's comment, with coming growth of youth coalition participation, would be great if youth coalitions had a collection of scripts for TikTok videos. So again, you're creating content that can be shared over and over and over again. That's exactly like the Facebook toolkit. We created content. It's all branded CMHA-CEI. So again, we're working to establish our brand and our messaging, our service delivery, our access line, our offerings. And It's available on our website. We promote it on Facebook. It's all kinds of different things. And it does the work for us. So this is in part and parcel our communication plan. And I've had, other groups want to utilize this stuff. We have several school districts that are using this toolkit. They handed it to their communications department at DeWitt High School or DeWitt Public Schools, Grand Ledge Public Schools, St. John's Public Schools, and those communication departments love it. It's everything on a platter for them. And they don't have to be behavioral health experts. That's us. That's for us to do. You can do it for underage drinking. You can do that for substance use disorder prevention because you're the experts. So I wanted to make sure that I shared this and people are aware of it. Take a look, let me know feedback. I'd be really appreciative of that. I wanted to get some time. We won't brainstorm, but we'll just leave you with the idea of thinking about new partnerships. Hopefully this has spurred some ideas about other partners, potential partners in your area or across the state that can enhance your efforts and provide a mutually exclusive benefit. So you really have to think about that. Mutually exclusive benefit. Who can help and support your efforts? Who here does an annual report? I really believe in annual reports. This is an effective, very, very effective promotional communications, partnering, and reporting tool. I have an instruction guide here that I'm going to share with you. I'll send it to Mike and you can have it and utilize it. It's a template for an annual report. You can make it as involved as you like. You can make it as extensive as you like. This annual report allows agencies and coalitions to highlight their programs, their partnerships, the investments made to improve the health of their communities. I think annual reports are very underutilized in our networks. I feel like we can take a few minutes. I do want to get some questions on this. Anybody can share that they have annual reports. I know a few of you do, maybe many of you do. And it can be a one-pager, or it can be more involved. Let me go through a little bit of this. And we do have to 3:15, so we got some time for questions at the end as well. Very close on the slides. So it is recommended to coalitions to include the following elements in any year-end outcome evaluation report. Call it whatever you like: annual report, year-end report, community report card, whatever you want. What I've shared and identified is share the introduction of the county, the coalition, the mission, vision, what's your linkages like and collaborative partners. What is your readiness to support prevention efforts in your community? Is it supportive of recovery? Is it supportive of, prevention of underage drinking? And then consider other things like recovery and integrated care efforts and things like that. I'd like people to note their funding streams, prevention programming, staffing. Your credibility is there. That's great. What kind of process outcomes have you achieved? So you have a plan, you completed this percentage of outcomes or milestones. What are some successes, achievements that you want to speak to, or stories? It could simply be a story of your coalition for last year. What you've been through around COVID, what you've walked through in COVID, what you've balanced in COVID and succeeded through that very tough environment that we're still living in. What important publications, products, or media pieces do you have to share or to note? What are some outcomes, behavioral outcomes, achievements? So programming specifically, what behavioral outcomes do you have to share? Perceptions of attitude, perceptions, behavior change, whatever it may be. Use, misuse, involvement with corrections or involvement with police, whatever it may be. And then 5 is system outcomes. So What new alignments, new systems, new partners do you have? And then you guys, I know a lot of people do the coalition evaluation. I have tools on that too, but there's a lot out there. What does your coalition say they're strong at? You know, what are your strengths and weaknesses? What do you have? I have a site review tool. I have a coalition effectiveness summary, evaluation summary. Talk about barriers, challenges, other external factors that involved in this work, COVID, you know, having to do things virtually, financial barriers, grants running out, sustainability of effort, whatever it may be, and then future plans and next steps. I think that's really important. Again, take as you wish. You can simplify, but I feel like it's a good, and we have references in this document that show where we pulled some of this information. We collect, you know, kind of brought it together in a different way. But this is really what I see make up a really nice annual report. It can be a 2-pager and it can be shared with your networks, and it's your business card for the following year and beyond. Questions about this? Does it make sense? Is it helpful? Would you like me to share this document with folks, with Mike, so you can get it out to everyone?
Yeah, please do, Joel. And you said you have a template for the annual report?
Yeah, well, this is it. This is the instructions. It's more than this. It has some references and resources on the next page, but I just got a little screen share. This is the checklist. So if you answer these questions, you're basically completing the annual report. You throw in images, some stories, or some, you know, branding of your coalition, your logo, you know, some pictures of some initiatives, whatever it may be, and you're golden. That's it.
Right. Well, I think it's important too. And again, I get a fair number of annual reports in the mail, and I always like getting them because I like to look at how they're done. But I know that I believe the Kent County Prevention Coalition seems like they send me one every year, probably ACHC and some other organizations. And McCrud hasn't done one. I think PN does, but McCrud hasn't done one before. But when we had an intern, had an intern work on an infographic that would kind of get to some of these things, or kind of like, we call it, you know, successes from the past year or something like that, but just kind of some kind of way to capture something like successes. But yeah, I'll take a look at this, but please share it with us and we can get it out to the other folks. And then
yeah, I appreciate that. That's great. Other feedback is welcome. Jump in. Really, for you guys and for some coalitions, that if you're not providing specific direct services, you can take out number 4, really. So there, it shortens it up. You can simplify it. You know, you don't have the behavioral health outcomes around programming or service delivery. Process outcomes are just like you said. What did you achieve this year? What was the accomplishments? And the others can be very brief snippets. You know, we're statewide. We're you know, a collective representation across the state. We have this kind of readiness, this kind of capacity. Here's our funding notes, or a statement about funding. Here's what we've achieved. Here's what we're hoping to achieve, or who we're looking to connect with in the future as far as other systems. Here's some things we're continuing to work on, and challenges and next steps. So it can be fairly straightforward. It doesn't have to involve everything, but I wanted to give you a start and kind of overview of that. The next one is, again, this will be actually small group and large group activity in the full curriculum, the full day module, where groups and coalitions that come to these trainings are going to get time, and they will come away with, you know, the beginnings of a partnership list, the beginnings of an annual report, the beginnings of a sustainability checklist, and other things that I have ready to go for that training. So this one, there's a lot of them out there. CADCA has a sustainability checklist. I've seen that. I have it. I think I have a version of it included here. But what I have is something more specific to coalition functioning overall. won't do this in small groups, but we're just going to talk about it. I'd be open to hearing any feedback. This is what I've put together. It's basically for the maybe executive team, staff, or full membership to look at. And it's a sustainability plan and checklist. And at the heart of all of this is communication, partnerships, and sustainability of effort. At the heart of this, and a lot of different sustainability plans and checklists that you see are those things: communication, partnerships, or membership, and sustainability of effort. So take a look. If you can see, it's a little smaller, but we're talking about membership and partnerships. We're talking about transparent and considerate planning processes. We talk about evaluation of effort, sustainability of effort. This is only a first page look. It's a 2-pager, and I'll send this out as well to Mike, and he can share with the group. Yes, no, unsure. And then you look at the bottom of that section, recommendations, next steps. Which ones do you want to work on? Identify some next steps. We want to look at more coalition membership and talk about clear roles defined, expectations within an MOU or other partnership agreement, or you want to do more recognition and celebration, or you want to work towards annual, biannual action plans to implement strategies, because we're having trouble implementing strategies. This checklist gives you kind of what do we need to focus on and where are we struggling with our sustainability criteria for our coalition. Thoughts, comments? We have just a few more minutes. And I think I can get to some general questions for the last few minutes. If there isn't any thoughts here, here's another sustainability worksheet, more like the CADCA one, but it talks about a community. Number 3, is there established communication plan? Number 2 is about, groups or services, and what's the collaborative structure, leadership roles. You can utilize these. This will be in the PowerPoint. You can utilize it, either one, and I'll send out the full checklist that I've created as a separate document to everyone. And really, my final thoughts, I think, to wrap this up, is we want to collectively be interested in building and sustaining county systems of prevention. And I'm talking substance use disorder and behavioral health more broadly. Even if you're just an underage, if you're just specifically focused on underage drinking, you are also connected to suicide prevention, opioid prevention, substance use disorder prevention in general, wellness promotion. All of these things are a part of your relevancy, and you represent and reflect a prevention prepared community. And I said this in the beginning, SAMHSA's major goal, it still continues to be a major goal of SAMHSA, to create prevention prepared communities. That's why CADCA, Anti-Drug Coalitions of America, is what it is. They are doing this. They are putting money into developing and supporting prevention prepared communities to take action, to promote emotional health and well-being, to prevent and reduce mental illness, substance abuse, and suicide across the lifespan. And I really also just want everyone to continue to be creative, action-oriented, partnership-driven. It's very important, effective and intentional in our work with community coalitions. I really feel that. I've done a lot of work to try to grow coalitions, to be a part of coalitions, to chair coalitions. I'd be happy to have conversations with any one of you or your networks around coalitions that are forming, norming, storming in your area, and or struggling and or excelling, and see how you can go to the next level, because there is every bit of another level to every coalition on this planet. And I love working with effective coalitions and seeing them thrive and seeing them move the needle and impacting communities in positive ways, which I know you guys are doing. So I really appreciate the time, energy to be here. This has been great. I'm really happy to see some faces I haven't seen in a little bit. So questions, comments, thoughts? Thanks for the comments. Others are welcome. Any thoughts, any parting thoughts? Good, bad, or indifferent? I can take it.
Thank you, Joel. We have another minute or two for questions. I'm gonna stop the recording.